One of my favorite things in sports, whenever one of these owners has to come out and do a press conference and we get to all see at the same time, oh, this rich person who's rich because his family was rich and he's not actually smarter than everyone else. So Jim Irsay is going to try and convince us that just hiring Jeff Saturday because he's on television is the smart thing to do. Now, this is Jim Irsay caught with pills and cash in his car in a way that's unseemly. Jim Irsay, who recently was the only one to put his name on Daniel Snyder, get out of here.
It was such a brilliant masterstroke by the owners, by the way.
To send Irsay out there?
Because Snyder really thought he had them
so
with the "I'll dig up dirt on you," and then they just
it was so good. They rolled out Irsay. Their secret
what you got on me?
now?
Right.
You think I have anything to lose?
Go for it.
And anytime they one of these press conferences, when one of these rich guys has to go and explain what he did, and you can hear all the arrogance and wonder, and I'm smarter than everybody, but you're not. He goes out there and tries to convince us that they're one of the best winners over the last 20 years, and it's not because of Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck. It's because they do something as an organization that isn't just we're going to win 10 games every year because we got Peyton Manning.
I mean, they drafted him.
Yeah,
they did.
Real tough call.
Wasn't it Manning or there was someone else? Ryan Leaf, right? Like that. Dan, at the time, that was a difficult decision. They chose wisely. I mean,
and
give him some credit. I mean, then he got Luck. I mean, give him some credit. Like he's run that organization pretty well. There are worse organizations in sports than the one that Jim Irsay is presiding over. I'm a fan of many of them.
They had quarterbacks the way Green Bay had quarterbacks. You're not going to convince me they ran their franchise well. Like they had 25 years of great quarterbacks. And now he's going to go up there and tell me that, yeah, Jeff Saturday can coach my team. No experience. I'm plucking him off television because I like it.
Whoa, now. High school coach. Experience at the high school level.
Right.
Damn right.
I think he went like 3-6.
I think he was working as a consultant for the Colts as well while working at ESPN.
He was, and the Colts on their staff don't have anybody that's ever called plays in the NFL. So he didn't have a hugely, I don't know why I'm trying to make excuses. It's a flabbergasting hire.
It's one of the funniest things to ever happen inside of an NFL season, inside of leadership. And I would say as well, when it regards Saturday, because a whole lot of people are already saying to me, why does Saturday get to cut the line? And they're predicting that I'm going to rail against black people not getting these jobs. First of all, black people always get this job. I would not want to wish this job on a black person. I have no issue with Jeff Saturday being the guy who's ambassador, and I will not have an issue with it unless he goes 6-0 and then gets a 5-year contract.
But if he goes 6-0 and gets a 5-year contract, then he's a miracle worker.
Exactly.
Like Dan Campbell was for the 3 games that you guys love Dan Campbell.
He didn't go 6-0.
No, but I'm saying you went in that sport, everyone's even. You can go out there and fart out a couple of victories. It's not going to be because Jeff Saturday did anything.
They have 8 games to go. I mean, he did give him an opportunity Saturday to have, if he goes 7-1, maybe he brings him back as head coach. Like, he gave him enough time to prove himself as a head coach. Right. I love Jeff Saturday. I love the hire. I love those eyes. Like, those eyes, if they're staring at me and giving me a pregame speech, I believe him, and I'm running through a wall for that guy.
Great eyes.
Yeah, like Saturday.
He is reputed to be a very smart guy, one of the smarter players to play during his era. They don't really have a lot of options. I will say it's not a terrible spot because the Colts have been so much worse than they should be.
Right.
Like, if he changes a quarterback back, and we know Matt Ryan had his struggles this year, but there were at least a couple of games where he had solid performances. It seems as though the division's pretty much gone, but they'll have another game against Tennessee. It's not a terrible spot for Jeff Saturday.
I'm going to remind people, even though I can be an idiot about predictions, when I assessed last year the way the Colts were playing the second half of the season, I thought it would be very easy for them to be the Bengals. To get to the Super Bowl, they missed by inches. They missed because they had Carson Wentz and they went into Jacksonville late in the season and somehow shit the bed. But that team could have been the Bengals last year empirically. You put them next to each other statistically. You look at the Bengals, you look at the Colts, you weren't going to find a lot of differences. They were 3-3-1 with Matt Ryan. 3-3-1 in that division. You're crushing people. 3-3-1 is good enough. Like the same way that 4-5 is now good enough for the Bucs. And I don't know who made the decision on Ellinger. It must have been Frank Reich, because the last 2 games is a dumping of the season by the Colts. You've just thrown your season away by not just putting in this quarterback, but saying on the moment, we're going to save money. No Matt Ryan. Announcing then, we're done. The Colts are not led well right now. You could like Jeff Saturday, Stugotz, because you would have liked anybody, evidently, because they just got anybody.
Right.
And Irsay said Ballard is coming back. Why? Like I know he's won executive of the year, but this whole plan, they found themselves in this situation because they keep going to the old veteran QB well. And it worked okay, I guess, with Phillip Rivers, even though they made the playoffs and they lost to Buffalo, and it was pretty clear to everybody Phillip Rivers was kind of done. Carson Wentz, they tried it a little younger. He was a disaster. Matt Ryan, they try it again, doesn't work out. Why does this GM just get a free pass?
Because outside of that, he's built a well above average roster, right? That's like outside.
I think so. Yeah.
Outside of you're right, those have been bad decisions, but outside of that, it's been pretty good.
I mean, the defense is still playing very hard, and they got Jonathan Taylor, Pittman. I think it's a pretty average roster that is taking advantage of one of the historically weaker divisions over this.
The offensive
stretch.
line, the offensive line hasn't been nearly what it was last year, which is why Jonathan Taylor is really struggling.
They spent a lot of money on that line too.
I know.
Yes.
Jonathan Taylor's been hurt, and
Right.
yeah, Frank Reich in a press conference when they made the move away from Matt Ryan said, we didn't hold up our end of the deal. We promised him you get to play behind this great offensive line, and the offensive line's been hit by injuries and just hasn't performed up to snuff.
Am I the only one who thinks they would be better and have a better chance to win had they not benched Matt Ryan? Because Sam Ellinger,
I agree with you.
Pretty clear.
Yes.
It's pretty clear now.
very
Or
clear.
Nick Foles, right?
But I would have liked to see Nick Foles.
Of course.
They
That
threw
was
away the season in the last 2 games, and it seems to be the centerpiece of why the coach is fired. It isn't like they had a plan. What was the plan?
Oh, I think they have a plan. I think it's Jeff Saturday, popular Colts guy, put him in there for 8 games and then go hire Jim Harbaugh.
I
think that's
what
the
I'm
plan.
saying is 2 weeks ago when they benched Matt Ryan and didn't know what would happen because they didn't think they were dumping the season. That 2 days ago or 2 games ago, they didn't have a plan. This is evidence of we didn't have a plan. We did not plan on firing this guy 9 games in because this is one of the strangest things you will ever see inside of a season.
They have a plan, Dan. It's Jim Irsay's leadership. May he remind you.
We're the 4th winningest franchise in the league since 2000. All right, that means in the upper quartile of winners, we're in the top quartile of that upper quartile. You want to bet against this guy? Put your money down, people. Love to see it. Love to see it.
Wow, quartile. Nobody uses that word. Come on, Jim.
Stugotz wants to be on the side of the Colts because they've won, because they get the credit for winning, because they're smarter about
It's in
winning.
Jeff Saturday's eyes.
I mean, the quartile thing, you know. I mean, they're a good organization, Dan. They've done a lot of winning. They've only won 1 Super Bowl, but, you know, I would take the last 25 years of the Indianapolis Colts as a sports fan. It's been
Easy.
good.
That's not a debate, but
Yeah.
I think what Dan is saying has merit. Look, they were bad. They got one of the greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen, and they had the tremendous luck. You've seen organizations like the Browns be bad year after year, try to get all those lottery chips, fail at the quarterback position. The 1 year Peyton Manning was hurt and unavailable to them, they were dreadful enough to get the number 1 pick, and they lucked into, no pun intended, the greatest quarterback of that class and one of the greatest QB prospects to ever enter the
Stugotz,
NFL.
I'd go another step on this. You're sitting here after a legitimately clown car day for the Colts and a clown car month for the Colts. You're giving them credit for stuff, for winning, understandably. And if Andrew Luck hadn't retired, you'd think they're the best run franchise in sports, and they're not. They just had 2 really good quarterbacks. Like, if Andrew Luck had stayed there, they would have been winning 10 games every year, and
Yeah,
they'd be
but
at the top of the standings right now. And Andrew Luck crippled the organization when he retired.
But luck is a part of it, Dan. You can say the same thing about the Spurs, who had Robinson. He was out for a year. They got Tim Duncan. I mean, you could say the same exact thing about Greg Popovich, but we don't.
I can't say the same thing about Greg Popovich because he did it with different players as the centerpiece of what it is that they were doing. You're the one who comes out every year and says, this is the greatest coaching job I've ever seen on Greg Popovich. Greg Popovich started and got lucky with Twin Towers and then made a career off it, as all of these guys have to have success at the start positions. But do you realize that if Andrew Luck was still the quarterback of the Colts, you would not realize that this person is a clown show as the owner of the Colts? It's not that it's a well-run organization. It's that they got two guys at quarterback that'll give you 10 wins every year.